Hey everybody, it's Jonathan. People are slow to get in today, but anyway, good to see you. It is Wednesday. It is Lacrosse Goalie Q&A Wednesday. So if you're watching the replay on Facebook, welcome. If you're listening to me on iTunes, just gonna do that in a moment. But man, a lot of good stuff going on today. Really excited about lacrosse season, man. Like people are a lot of crazy stuff going on. Some of my college goalies are dealing with some really weird college coaches, which is kind of bizarre. Just doing some really petty stuff. Mike Tupin, hello, sir. So really, it's really, it's been a fun. It's always a fun, interesting start to the year. So my college men, pardon me, a couple games into the season now, and some are waiting for their chance to step on the field. Starting goalies are having trouble. They're trying to do their best to be ready in the background and ready to go. And like I said, for my female college goalies, it's really interesting. The theme I could say this year, which is kind of weird, is just negative coaching, which really bothers me. Really, really, really bothers me. So, one of the things when you're dealing with negative coaches is staying positive, right? Keeping your athlete positive and staying focused. So, I want to make sure that I always share that message. But I know it can be tough when you're dealing with a whole team as a coach. Like and a lot of you guys will know this, right? It's hard dealing with a whole team and managing everybody and managing the expectations and then you got goalies that you just wish would take care of themselves. So, that can give us an advantage as a goalie. But it can also, because we can do our own thing. But one bit of feedback I just got recently was a dad who went to go visit his college daughter, who's a freshman, and she's not been getting any coaching. And the dad took her aside and played. They played because why? That dad's been doing that her whole life. This is the first spring season where that goalie is not getting worked on by dad. And the college coach was offended and totally insecure and not cool at all. So if I can share with you one thing, just keep your goalies positive, be focusing on the positive stuff. Don't dwell too much in the negative stuff, and just keep them focused about good stuff. And that good stuff doesn't even have to be lacrosse related, by the way. Just energetically, getting your goalie talking about something that excites them, whether it's it could be something as mundane as a video game or a movie, but getting them in this positive headspace before they actually go out to play. And they've got to deal with a negative coach or negative teammates or whatever. Just getting them in a positive headspace is really going to help them, right? Um, really, really, I just want to remind everybody of that. So, man, okay, everybody's popping in. Vinny Ricasio, Mike Simmons, Scott Stratton, Joseph Michael, good to see you, buddy. John Carroll, hello, and a whole bunch of lurkers in the background. If you're lurking, do me a favor and just pop a little thumbs up, or if you can leave a quick little comment or a like. The Facebook loves that and it starts to kind of spread it. So really, really good stuff. So a couple things for everybody. If this is the first time you're hearing me, I'm Jonathan Edwards, Coach Edwards. I run lacrossegoalietips.com, which is the longest consecutively running lacrosse goalie blog on the planet. If this is your first time hearing my voice, welcome. I've been coaching lacrosse goalies for a really, really long time, and we have one of the best lacrosse goalie communities going on right now. Almost 900 members now, which is really exciting. In our private Facebook group called Creating the Lacrosse Goalie of the Future. So I've been very active on Instagram lately. So if you're following me on Instagram at Lacrosse Goalie Tips, a lot of good stuff popping up, really good conversations popping up there. I'm kind of stirring the pot a little bit. Andy, hello, sir. Good to see you. Welcome. So if you want to head on over to Instagram, make sure you're following me there. Lacrosse Goalie Tips. That's really cool. And my other Instagram account is Olympic Jonathan, just so everybody knows, at Olympic Jonathan. So for my Lacrosse Goalie University members, who I coach privately every month, and I've got a ton of coaching videos in the background, got some cool things to tell you about. So I've uploaded 2 new Drill Vault videos that and for those of you guys that don't know, Drill Vault videos in Lacrosse Goalie University is where I take a video that's been popping around, like either on Instagram or on YouTube, by somebody, and I basically critique it, and I dissect what's good about this video and what's not good about this video, right? So and it's not there to bash anybody. It's just to basically make all my goalie parents and goalies kind of informed consumers as to what's good about this and what may not be good about this for your Goalie, right? So I've got 2 videos going in there that were done by Scott Rogers, and dissecting some of that. I'm also putting the finishing touches on a throwing mechanics video, and some tips on how to teach a goalie, or pretty much any shooter, but a goalie specifically, how to throw effectively and how to basically manage pockets in a goalie stick and how to make that work, right? So that's going in as well. On top of that, what's going in is my confidence course. So over at my other website at athletespecific.com/confidence, I have a course on confidence for athletes. And so what I've done is I've taken that confidence course and I've put it inside Lacrosse Goalie University for free. And I'm adding a goalie specific module to that course. So if that's something that's just gonna be part of the membership, so part of what's included, and so really excited about that. So Jennifer Blocknat, hello, good to see you. And what else today? Last thing before we get started, on my other podcast, which goes on right after this at 2:30 Eastern in the Raising High Performance Athletes group that I run, I'm talking about sacrificing your body for your sport. All right, so this is a pretty interesting one, and especially for goalie parents, if you're interested in this sort of topic, come on over and join that group, Raising High Performing Athletes, and I do a podcast on that as well. But the concept of sacrificing your body for success in sport is interesting because, I can tell you personally as a goalie who was a Division I recruit and an All-American and who was an Olympian in a different event, I deal with the trauma that I went through as an athlete. And so we tend to shrug this stuff off every once in a while when we're in the thick of it, right? And it's a really fascinating topic to me, this idea that as athletes, we're so passionate about this thing that we do that we're basically going to be physically abused every day, right? Especially for our goalies. So come check that out if you want to learn some more about that. All right, good stuff. So, oh man, everybody's popping in. So Jacqueline Knight, hello, good to see you. Charles, Jarrett, Chris, David, hello. So a couple topics, actually, Chris, you're going to like today's topic. Are going to cover this a little bit more in detail. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, I got an email from a college coach this week asking for some advice on eliminating unnecessary movement in a lacrosse goalie. And so I want to give you just everybody a little bit of history here, who might not be, one of the things I'm old enough now. I don't feel as old as I am. How many of you out there don't feel nearly as old as you are on the clock, right? I'm old enough to have seen a pretty big evolution in lacrosse, and I speak to that because a lot of the coaching advice that is out there that you'll find on the internet is really just rehashed, unthought out coaching advice, right? So I'm very much about why are we coaching this a certain way, and what's most importantly, what's the lacrosse goalie of the future going to do? And the concept of eliminating unnecessary movement in lacrosse goalies, we got to go back a ways. So one of the first videos the first VHS tape videos that came out, there were really 2 that I remember. One was done by U.S. Lacrosse by a coach off of Long Island named Bob Rule. And I think you can still find this video. It's really kind of crazy. And so Bob Rule, this was a video done where the goalie stick was 6 feet long, and it's really archaic. And then Bill Pilot from the goalie school, for those of you guys know, Bill Pilot's a coach at Roanoke in Virginia. Bill actually recruited me out of high school, which was cool. I got to tell you this: they had some of the most hardcore recruiting techniques. Of all the coaches that recruited me, Roanoke was at the top. And I'll share that story in another episode. But Bill Pilot's been coaching goalies for a very long time. Runs this massive goalie school that has now multiple locations. But he had a VHS tape video, and in that video, he talked about that a goalie needed to be still before every shot. And of course, like anything, humans just kind of took this and ran with it to the point where it was oh my God, a goalie needed to be frozen before every shot. And so, with my Olympic background, one of the things I learned in my strength and later my strength and conditioning background, I learned that there's some natural movement that the body needs to exhibit. Like, we're not trying to be like a pistol shooter or an archer where we are basically imposing ourselves on a target, right? Now, when I look at other goalies, you look at hockey goalies, and they tend to be quite still. If you think of like a slap shot from the point, goalie gets set, and then they look like they're basically still, but they're really covered by a lot of equipment, so you don't really see what's going on. Soccer goalies, on the other hand, will have a lot of. They'll do a split step that is. It's called a split step. It's the same thing you see in like tennis players, right? So there's a movement, a natural movement that that helps the goalie actually respond, and so there's a lot of science in tennis about the split step. And so this got me thinking about like, okay, well, what should we be doing with lacrosse goalies? So there's really two types of unnecessary movement. And this is really important that if you're working with your goalie to think about like, okay, well, what is my goalie actually doing? One, there's movement before the shot is taken. Okay, right. There's all, as the players are moving, that goalie needs to, one, constantly be in position, right? So, I'm not a fan on 5-step arc or 3 steps arc. I'm a huge fan of a goalie being in position no matter where that shooter is, right? And that's really important to understand. But the idea is like, okay, is my goalie sloppy before, as they're moving, to be prepared for the shot, right? And so there's that. So within this, there's actually two parts as well. There's the goalie getting ready to be in position. And so what we want to see there is really, we want to see stability. Like we want to see that, the top hand with the stick just stable as the goalie is moving. And we don't want to see them like dropping and lifting and dropping and lifting. That's one thing. The second part of it is like when a player is coming, the goalie needs to track the stick. Okay. And that stick may go up, may go down, may go right, may go left. And in lacrosse, more than any other sport, the ball can move so much prior to the shot being taken, right? Like literally, if a player's on the crease, they can fake you here to your left, and then they can switch hands and fake you and shoot off their right, and that could be like a 6 foot, 8 foot difference, right? Depending on the height of the athlete. So the goalie is going to have to basically prepare for that, but we need to be careful that the goalie isn't overdoing it. And what I find happens a lot is that a brand new goalie, doesn't have to be young, just new, they are going to underreact. Then they're going to go through a phase where they're tracking everything, and it's like, whoa, wait a second, they're all over the place, and then actually puts them out of position, and they're easily faked. And then finally, like kind of that third phase is where they settle down and they understand, like, okay, what when a player fakes or they're moving, how much do I actually have to move to be in position to cover that ball, right? So you've got to. That's really like kind of the first phase. Sorry, and for those of you trying to follow me, that's like 3 phases within the first phase. So now we get in the second the second idea here, which is when does an athlete actually move to the ball? Are they moving properly, or are they being sloppy? And this is a big. So that's a different set altogether. When I talk about the 3 keys to making any save, one of the things I talk about is I talk about the goalie needs to see the ball, they need to know where it's going, and then they need to move in front of the ball. Well, it's that moving in front of part that kind of dovetails with the do they know where the ball is going part. And so if a goalie is new, if they don't have a lot of experience, that know where the ball is going part, they may not know that yet, right? They may not be comfortable with it yet. And one of the things that needs to happen is that a goalie needs time to develop what I call their shot library and their save library. So the shot library is like, what does a shooter look like? What can a shooter do in this situation? I've been doing videos on I've been pulling videos off of Instagram to talk about this. Where there was a video that just went around a couple days ago of a college game, and this player is catches the ball, gets a pass from behind the cage, the pass comes above goal line extended. So I'm going to slow down so people can follow what I'm saying here. So the ball's at X. There's a cutter coming down to the right side of the goalie. And so the goalie is facing behind and then has to rotate to track the ball. The ball gets caught by this player who's sprinting down the alley. Player catches the ball quite deep, right? So what I mean by that is quite close. This player is running from top right to back right, all right? And so he catches the ball, but he has like no angle. The thing is he still scores because why? He puts it in behind the back. But the goalie completely overplays the shot, right? So that to me, and this floors me because it's like a Division I goalie. What floors me is that the goalie doesn't understand where the ball could be going at a shot taken from that location, going in that direction, behind the back, those sorts of things. And so that to me is a very sloppy response. And to eliminate that, a goalie needs a lot of understanding of different types of shots. So let me back up here, all right? So when we're trying to eliminate unnecessary movement, we basically have to do it there's two ways. One is the actual response to the understanding of what the shooter can do. The can or can't do. So this only comes from experience, right? So the way you can expedite this, however, is by practicing slowly situations that you see that can come up in the games that you play. All right. And so what I mean by that, one second, guys, I got to time out for a second. I'm just going to send an email. I've got a client who's got a coaching call booked in 12 minutes, but my calendar has totally screwed it up and obviously didn't take into account I'm on the phone with you guys. So one second, Adam, I'm double booked to reschedule. Hang on, everybody. Sorry about this. This is so professional. Can talk this afternoon. Will be at 3:30 my time. All right. Sorry, everybody. That's really kind of funny. So we gotta love technology, right? So here's the deal. One of the things that I can't stand is that so if you've got a brand new goalie and you're warming him up or you're shooting on him in the backyard, everybody starts out like straight ahead, right? Like straight up, in front of the goal, 15 yards away, but you're dead center on the goalie. Imagine. And then what happens? Well, then you move a little right, you move a little left, right? So that's okay. But then let's say practice gets cut short and you never get to work on that close angle shot over here, or you never work on interesting stuff, right? You never work on unusual situations. And so I tell everybody that you should be dedicating at least 10% of your shooting to something that's weird, because how many goals if you watch a college game, if you watch the highlights that I'm putting out now on YouTube of college games, right, you see the types of shots that a goalie is shooting. Well, those are college goalies. What kind of shots are your goalies seeing? Are they seeing shots right off the crease? Are they seeing sweeps across the top? Are they seeing alley dodges, or guys coming from behind, or girls coming from behind? What is it? Well, if you're not spending any time on those types of shots, well, your goalie's never going to learn them until the game comes. And then what happens is the goalie's trying to figure it out while it's happening, and that's not good. Okay, that doesn't work. So what I recommend is you've got to take time working on something unusual. And one of the best ways to do this, and this is kind of fun, all right, is have your goalie find or your team, it doesn't matter, find a shot that they saw on Instagram, right? Or they saw on TikTok or whatever. And replicate that shot in practice, right? Replicate that shot in practice. Why? Well, the goalie can see, all right, yeah, this was the goal that got scored, and this is what happened. And now have your shooters, or if you're the shooter, you can replicate it, right? And it's okay to do it slowly because we can't do anything quickly that we haven't mastered slowly, right? So spend some time in practice and replicating that shot. And here's the thing. Start your warm up with that. Like, why the hell not? Right? Start your warm up with that. Why? Well, it's going to be different. It's going to be intriguing. As long as all the safety rules apply. Use tennis balls if you're in close or things like that. But now your goalie is going to be like, oh, this is kind of cool, and the brain is going to be like, lighten up, right? They're going to be super excited about it. So that's a way but you've got to spend some time doing those things, or else the goalie never learns until games and practice and scrimmages, and unfortunately, those are times when they get scored on. Right? It's not really exciting. The goalie's bummed out. And then, it's I want positive with the goalie. I don't want negative with the goalie, right? So start your warm up doing something fun. Like, here's, we're going to do 10 behind the back shots from in close, like, or whatever, right? Or fake high, shoot low, or fake low, shoot high. Like, what happens in this situation if I have you on, oh, you're a righty goalie and you're on the right pipe? Oh, what happens if I fake you low, off stick low, and then how do you save that? This is where my argument is that the lacrosse goalie of the future is going to be switching hands, right? And maybe I'll save that for a future. We'll work on this next week. I'll put that down as a note. We'll work on that next week on talking about my argument as why the lacrosse goalie of the future is going to change, is going to be able to switch in hands. And I go into that for my Lacrosse Goalie University members. So if you're not a Lacrosse Goalie University member, you're in the dark. So that's the first phase. The second phase is when a goalie is actually responding to the ball. This also just comes with experience. The former part, as a goalie is moving, there's a lot of strength involved in keeping the stick the right height and not dipping the shoulders as they move. For my Lacrosse Goalie University members, the Scotty Rogers video that I did for you this week, I explain a little bit why like a goalie might struggle with that and how to fix it, right? So keep that. Keep those things in mind. I don't believe that we're trying to eliminate lacrosse goalie movement whatsoever. I don't believe a goalie should be like dead still. A goalie may drop, and the reason why is the body is actually trying to create a little bit of an elastic response. So for those of you that work out or hit a gym, or you'll understand that like if you do a squat in the gym, if you go under a squat rack, well, if you squat from the top down, right? So you get under the bar and you step out and you squat from there, you are stronger than if you were to just put the bar at the base height. Like let's say at the low point of your squat and try to get in from there. The reason being is one starts from a static position, the other one we build some elastic, we build some kinetic energy, right? And that's why you're smart in that. That's why for a goalie who's in a set position and then is exploding left or right, they're moving from a static position. It takes a ton of strength. So a goalie's natural response to want to just kind of drop a little bit before they think that shot's coming, it's the body going, hey, I need some elastic energy to move, right? That's why some of the really wide stances that I see goalies sit in, they're wrong. They're incorrect. Like they violate good physical movement, right? Think of, if you were going to design a lacrosse goalie, right? If you're going to design a lacrosse goalie, and what would you do? You'd be like, I need a really good athlete, right? And so you look at other sports for athletes. You look at like a basketball player, maybe. You look at a football player, right? And you think, okay, how do they stand? They don't stand like they look like they're taking a massive dump on a massive toilet, right? And I see some college goalies standing like that. I'm like, who's teaching this stuff? You're ridiculous. You're so wide. You're now in the end range of your hip mobility, hip flexibility. You've got no strength there, right? So the only thing you're doing is, You're so wide that you know the shot's coming between your feet. That's it, right? But you've got no explosive ability whatsoever in that position, so don't do that. All right. Okay, enough on that one. Any questions, you can post them in the box. Ray Storsky, thank you. Missy Wilcox, hello. Suzanne, wow, everybody's in. Suzanne, Heather Peterson, good to see you. Richard Hull. Heather Peterson's not even a lacrosse goalie, but she's just a fan. I love it. Craig Wright, welcome. First one in. Dan Marut. Wow, holy smokes, lots of people in. Great stuff, everybody. Okay, so let's talk about what to do if your goalie is small and is getting dunked over. How many people have that problem? All right. Just leave me a comment in the box. And if your goalie is undersized for the net they're on. So I have one of the things that I would like to see change in the sport of lacrosse in the United States or globally is that we have nets that are 5x5 all the way up to like eighth grade, ninth grade, right? So high school in the U.S., grade 9 and up. Below grade 9, I think we should have 5x5 foot nets. I understand it's a massive, it's an investment, it's things like that. But developmentally, I would rather have a goalie who is 6 feet tall in a 5x5 foot net than to have a 4'6" goalie in a 6x6 foot net. Okay, so Suzanne Redinger, there you go, that's us. So the reason being is because what ends up happening for lacrosse coaches who are maybe not understanding of the lacrosse goalie is there's this tendency that the goalies get scored on up top, right? They get scored on in those upper corners. And it gets really frustrating for a goalie, and it's also not developmentally great for the shooters, right? So, if you've got a shooter and they've gone through a growth spurt and they're like 13 years old, 14 years old, and or even 12 years old, and they're scoring just because they're picking corners on a goalie who's like 4 feet tall, they're not learning. They're not getting any better, right? And the goalie's frustrated because he literally can't reach or she can't reach to make those saves. Now, so this can obviously it unnecessarily boosts the confidence of the shooter, right? And it also unnecessarily degrades. I don't know if that might be a little harsh, but it just bums out the goalie, right? Let's put it that way. It bums out the goalie. So if we had 5x5 foot nets, that would eliminate all of that, right? The goalie is now working within a cage that's more appropriately sized for him or her. The shooters are now appropriately challenged because now that goalie has a better physical ability to make those saves to the corners and to the sides and things like that. And so what happens is what I want to understand is that, okay, we don't have that, right? And so one of the things, everybody, I want you to understand something about me is that I will only bitch about the current position, the current situation like this, and then I want to just come to solutions. So your goalie is in a 6x6 foot net. They're small, like Suzanne Ridinger's goalie, and they're frustrated and they're bummed out. Here's the deal: you gotta get them. You gotta help them understand that the goalie position at their age, at their size, is going to be unnecessarily difficult. And you have to keep stats about the shots that go in that are to spots in the cage that they physically cannot reach. Okay. Now we've got, I'm going to divide this into two types of shots. We've got time and room shots from outside where a shooter is just going to rip it at the cage. Well, your goalie may be so small that they can't physically reach high enough. All right. For my Lacrosse Goalie University members, I have a whole module on and some drills on how to fix this. But conceptually, your goalie needs to understand that, you know what, I can't reach that corner. I can't reach across. I can't stop a ball to my off stick side because I don't have the flexibility or the strength to move there yet. And that's the key, is yet. So there's a lot of yet as a parent and a coach talking with a young goalie saying like, listen, dude, You were a stud on all those shots, or a studette, but that one that kid put, those 12 goals they scored in the top corner, yeah, don't worry about it, right? And that sucks for a little guy, and it sucks for his team or her team, because the team's going like, oh, our goalie's crap. No, your goalie's just tiny. And so it's really unfortunate. So that's shots from outside. Shots from off the crease are even harder, because if your goalie steps out at the shooter, they're just getting dunked on. Okay, so people ask at this point, they're like, they're asking like, well, should my goalie come out to hit somebody if they've got the chance? Should my goalie be picking off passes? If there's a guy who's like just perched off the crease and he's cherry picking, or she's cherry picking, can I come out? Yeah, the answer is yes. If your goalie is physically able to come out and make that pass, that's a skill that I want a college age goalie to have, right? That's a timing issue, right? So if there's let's say there's a play coming out, it's like a fast break, and there's a player wide open, to the right side of the goalie, just off the crease. Now, but that pass, the amount of time it takes that pass to go from the person who's on the fast break and to that player, that amount of time that ball's in the air, if I can jump out and cut that pass off, do it. Okay. For coaches that coach that out of a goalie, it drives me nuts, right? For a coach that says like, oh, the goalie should never leave the crease, you're stupid. I'm sorry, but you're stupid, because you're not coaching the game, right? And so for those of you that deal with coaches like that, between you and I, that coach is stupid, all right, with 2 O's, STOOPID, all right? Because they're just not coaching the game. I want my goalies to be all over the field positive, just like I want my D to be all over the field positive, and my offensive players to be all over the field positive, right? So should your goalie come out and cut off the pass? Yes, because if they stay back and it results in a player just catching the ball and dunking it over their head, that's not cool, right? That's stupid, right? So let's be smart about it, and let's do that. So, but the bottom line, though, for little goalies, when a player does get the ball off the crease, right, and they already have the ball, is that they need to stay closer to the cage to make the saves, because when they come out, they're easily shot around. So if you're going to try to have your best attempt at making this save, and your goalie's small, is they got to stay close, right? Stay close to the net. And I talk about the string drill a lot, and showing a goalie what sort of angles they need. In the women's game especially, when players are really close to the crease, I see goalies out way too far, too soon, because what ends up happening, if that player can still sweep around him, the angles change, the geometry changes so quickly, goalie has no chance to make a save, okay? So I hope that makes sense, all right? Ray Stowarski says, love the recent comments on Facebook. Look forward to working on the off-stick punch. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that probably maybe next week, about using the bottom hand as a blocker. Not like free of the stick, but connected to the stick. But just, this has never made any sense for me. Some of you guys have heard me say this before. But I believe that the lacrosse goalie of the future will realize that taking their bottom hand out of the way, right, and trying to get their top hand to get the stick head to that same spot, that's going to change. And the goalies who adopt that are going to have much better save percentages. And as I do college goalie edits every week, I see this all the time. Announcers are talking about, this goalie is weak on their off-stick hip. Yeah, every goalie is weak on their off-stick hip, because they're taking their bottom hand out of the way, and they're trying to get their top hand to the ball. No other goalie in any other sport does it. Okay, and so if you look at our comments in the Facebook group, you'll see what I'm talking about, and on Instagram as well. Oh my God, lots of stuff to talk about. So Jim May asks, how many shots and clearing passes each practice? As many as you like, right? So Jim, this is a great question, and I'll just tag this so I know where it is. So Jim May asks, how many shots and clearing passes in each practice? So this kind of has two sides to this question, and Jim, I'll just cover this. Here's the thing, is that we need to keep our goalies protected and happy, right? So for those of you that are new to my work, I believe 100% that a happy goalie is a goalie who's going to be focused on making the ball or making a save. If you've got my goalie cheat sheets at lacrossegoalietips.com, I go into more detail on this. But here's the deal, is that if your goalie is unhappy and because they're unprotected and your shooters are shooting from too close or with a lacrosse ball, and their fear goes up, goalie's not learning. Okay, so, but that being said, I do believe that a goalie who takes it upon him or herself to be protected, regardless of what the coach asks, to come to practice, that they are then able to get in front of more balls, all right? So I don't like seeing teams that do shooting drills and the goalies are not in the cage or they're doing something else, right? Coaches that say like, oh, my team can only shoot with lacrosse balls, they're stupid with 2 O's, okay? Because what you could do is you could put tennis balls in those kids' sticks, and now have a goalie in the cage because they're safe, and taking advantage of that shot, right? So kind of the term I use is no wasted balls, right? So every shot at the cage is a chance for a goalie to be in that cage learning, but if the goalie has to be in a situation where they're protected and happy, okay? So in terms of clearing, I also recommend that teams take the extra 4 seconds, give the goal. So let's say you're running like a half field drill and your half field offense, and the offense takes a shot at the goalie. For the boys, at least give them 4 seconds where that goalie can make the save, they can corral the ball, and the defense can break out, and then they can at least try to make a clearing attempt. Okay. If they decide to step out the back of the cage, just you blow the whistle. But basically, if you do that 10 times in a practice, right, that's an extra 40 seconds you're running that drill, right? Coaches say like, oh, I don't have any time to let my D clear the ball. Listen, if you give them just 4 seconds and you run that drill 5 times, that's 20 seconds. Not a lot of time, right? Coaches think it's like minutes, and it's not. And for the girls, what I would do, because a goalie has 10 seconds in the crease, you can give them that time if you want it. But because really, if you run a drill and you run it, 10 times, and you give the goalie 10 seconds and the team to clear, well, that's 100 seconds. That's not even 2 minutes in a practice, right? So super worthwhile to just take that time. And so in terms of clearing passes, Jim, I think to me, a pass is a pass is a pass is a pass. So a shot is just an accurate pass. So I don't necessarily just do line drills with a team. I do shooting drills. Why not? Right? Why waste the time doing line drills, which don't really equate to much, and just do shooting drills instead, which then benefits the shooter who's now getting accurate, which is what a pass is. And you also got a goalie in the cage, and they're taking advantage of that shot. So just be creative with that, and they'll be much better off. So how much is too much? Not much. You just let it happen. All right. So last question for today. Man, I just burned through this time. What the hell happens? And you guys all listen. This is amazing. All right. Good stuff. So Jim May, that's a really good question. All right. And holy smokes, a lot of new people in, which is great. Good to see everybody. I'm not going to say hello to all those people. That's going to be redundant to the people who are on iTunes. Last question. Should your goalie play out? I can't remember who asked this question in the group today. If you're on, awesome. Just raise your hand. If you're not, that's okay. So I think the question related to a kid who's like 8, U8 or U10, and they're playing. And if your goalie is a high school or college goalie, listen up, all right? Because I'm probably about to kind of reveal why your goalie sucks in a bit. All right, here's the deal. Should your goalie play out, and at what age should they stop playing out? When I played. So, and I don't like to start things like saying like, oh yeah, when I played. No, that's not the point. So when I played, I was very lucky because in a lot of teams that I was on, I was the only goalie. All right. And so I know for a lot of you, your goalie will get to a point where they're like they're like the most your kid is the most keen kid, or you have one kid who's keen, and then and they're motivated and they're good, and anybody else around them realizes that they're not as motivated, not as good, and so they don't want to play goal. So that leaves your goalie like the only kid who wants to play goalie, and that's not good. All right. So even if I have a kid who's that age and they love the position, right? And right, we all know within this, right, we have goalies who they're the only goalie because they don't like to run, or we have kids who are the only goalie because they just love the position, right? And they're like 6. So here's the thing. The question to ask is, am I developing my goalie to be really good at the next level? Okay. So if your kid's U10, how can we develop my goalie so that they're the best goalie at U12, right? Or if your kid's 14, and on the JV, how do we get them to be the best goalie on the varsity when that comes around? Like, that's the question. And so when we're developing a goalie, I believe that a goalie with good stick skills, an athlete with good stick skills can be a good goalie. All right. I can turn a goalie into an athlete. All right. I can also turn an athlete into a goalie. All right. But if your goalie is stuck in the position, so I believe that the coaches should provide opportunities for that goalie to play out. And now that can come in all sorts, and using a short stick and running and playing defense and understanding, like, okay, how does a clear work? How do I pass in the run? Because if a goalie can't pass on the run with a short stick, they sure as shit, pardon me, they're not going to be able to do it with a goalie stick, right? Does it make sense? Right? So at what age should they stop playing? Well, interesting thing, when I played on teams where I wasn't the only goalie, right? Like I think of like summer league or travel teams, where I wasn't the only goalie, I hated sitting on the bench. Like, what a waste of time that was. So I would grab a long pole and I would play like long stick midi because we never had enough of those, right? But I was athletic enough, I developed my athleticism enough to be able to do all those things, right? So I think the worst, like, it floors me when we have a goalie sitting on the bench, right? It drives me crazy. And so now there's things that you can do when you're on the bench to be developing, and that's totally cool. But when I see even college goalies, like I'm working with a Division I women's goalie this year. She lacks like some fundamental athleticism and stick skills. Why? Because in her entire career through high school, she was like the only goalie. And people were thinking like, oh, isn't this great? She's getting all this playing time. No wonder she's playing Division I. No, because what ended up happening was like the coaches she had in high school just rode her and her abilities, but lacked to have that attitude of like, how do we make this goalie great at the college level, right? Now, just a little side story real quick. I believe that a high school goalie, when they get to college, and if your kid is U8, U10, listen up. If your kid gets to college, I don't always like seeing freshman goalies having to start, because there's like that first 2 years of college where they're learning stuff in practice and they're developing their skills so that when they get into the game they can thrive. I was watching like Johns Hopkins. I think they got a freshman goalie this last week, and I was bummed for that kid because I'm like, dude, they're asking you to do things you haven't developed yet. But primarily that comes from coaches along the way who aren't thinking, and probably parents too, thinking like, how do I develop my goalie to be successful at the next level, right? So U8, U10, U12, U12, U14, U14, JV at high school, varsity, college, right? That's the attitude you got to have, right? Because that answers all your questions of like, oh, should my goalie be playing out? Well, probably, right? To develop their athleticism, right? And I think it was Missy Wilcox, who I interviewed a couple weeks ago, who's a ref. Her daughter started playing goalie because she didn't like to run. But now she's in college and she's like the fastest kid on the team, right? That to me is a cool story. All right, so that's the deal. And every goalie gets to a point where their physical ability holds them back. They wish they had more of it. So keep developing it, okay? So Holy smokes, everybody. Just burned through 45 minutes like super quick. I hope you enjoyed this. So Joseph Michael writes, just talked to a parent that said his kid isn't athletic, so he's playing goalie. Right? Love that one. Right? Okay, so your kid's not athletic. So I'll share this story real quick and then I'll end. And I've told this once before, but I probably could use a rehash. I grew up in South Weymouth, Massachusetts. And so I went to Thayer Academy in Braintree, but because Weymouth South didn't have a lacrosse team. Weymouth North did. And the head coach, God rest his soul, it was a guy named Tony Manzelli. Tony Manzelli used to wear this like orange golfer cap, dark like sunglasses, thick sunglasses. He had a beard like mine, and he used to smoke cigarettes on the sideline. And he had a voice that was, I will do my best to replicate it right now. But I went to my first ever coaching clinic. I was coaching a high school program in Bedford, Massachusetts. I went to the Massachusetts Coaches Clinic. Tony Manzelli stands up and he goes like this. And this probably isn't true, but I envisioned Tony standing in this high school gymnasium smoking a cigarette. But I remember him saying like, all you guys who put the fat kid in the cage who can't run, you're making a big mistake. He goes, you make that kid a crease attackman. Why? Nobody can move him, right? You put him in the cage, everything's going by him. And if you ask that kid to clear, he's got a heart attack by the time he gets to the restraining line. That was Tony, right? So for those of you listening to me, if your kid is the fat, slow kid in the cage, we love him up, right? We love him up. We don't have him do long runs with the team. We have him do like 10-yard sprints, right? And then we teach them how to be male or female, right? I'm not having a kid who's super overweight and I'm trying to get him to shed a few pounds before the season starts. Don't bother, right? But your kid will eventually have to become an athlete who plays the lacrosse goalie position, all right? But, and I'll leave you all with this, you're going to get further with that goalie, right? Maybe you do have the fat kid in the cage, and I'm not talking with a PH, right? Big capital F, right? So you got the kid out there, and they're playing lacrosse, and they're doing something they probably wouldn't be doing otherwise, but they love the game. Maybe they got a couple buddies on the team, right? They got a couple buddies on the team, and so they're out there playing, and the only place they feel comfortable is in that crease. You know what? You do everything you can to keep them there, right? And you do everything you can to boost their confidence and to cheer when they make saves and have a great time. Because you know what? That kid this summer, he's going to put down the Xbox. He's going to put down the slice of pizza. Why? Because his team loved him and his coach loved him. And he's going to go out, or she's going to go out, and she's going to run some hills by herself. And she's going to show up in the fall, and she's lost 20 pounds. Why? Because she's a fucking goalie, right? So love that kid up, have good stuff with him, make him happy, get the team to rally around him, and you're going to get more out of him. All right, everybody. See you next week. Cheers. Bye.